Well, I like working with living beings. For me, this is important because it's how you can construct an image with things that move or has a certain sense that you have to construct the image with this to control this. So for me, it's like a challenge, first of all. And I work with people, humans, or with animals, for example, as examples for you to understand this of living beings. It depends on the piece, depends on the idea. I work with, for example, children or old people or men or women. You know, depends on the idea. So here in this piece that I'm doing for 14 rooms, I am working with people that has a special history on their bodies. I mean, on their lives. I mean, I'm not talking about this, I'm not talking about each history, but I understand that they have different ways that the transformation of the bodies. For me it was kind of important to come with this idea because I came with the ceiling very close to the floor. It was an idea of a compression somehow. And so for me, when the image came, that I created this image, I only could see this kind of people that are, you know, with special history on their bodies, that they call disabled people, that I don't think it's a nice word because it's able, not be able. So it's, but the work doesn't talk about this, it's straight about this, because it's just, you know, a kind of poetic way to see things. I really like to think how is exactly the behavior of people, I mean, in civilization or this kind of things, how, for example, the architecture can change the behavior of people, or how we could construct some architecture that is exactly the response of what we move or we think about things, or we deal with objects, for example. And if you think about the behavior of people going to exhibitions in the history of art, there is a kind of contemplative, you know, way that you look at things, that you are always in the same position, or you move yourself in the same position sometimes, the same way you behave. And I like the idea that you can come to an exhibition as a viewer, as a spectator, and you can make things different. You know, you move yourself, and then when you move yourself in a different way, you can think about this as well. And at the same time, it's about behavior and it's about architecture. And the piece always also talks about this a lot, because you see the piece and then you see the architecture is different there in relation to the other piece, because the ceiling came very close to the floor. So we could say in this that the architecture is so important as the participant in the piece, that this someone that is taking part in the piece. So there is not a hierarchy, I mean, which brings us an idea that we are not talking about a performer somehow. We are talking much more in a image that is a total image with the body and the architecture in relation. Actually, this was an idea that I had many years ago in '97 when I was starting. Actually, this is one of my first pieces somehow, you know, of this group of work that's called Man Flesh, Woman Flesh, that has a special philosophy to deal with the image and to work with people or animals. But the first time that I did this piece was in 2010, many years later, I think 13 years later. So I did this piece a long time ago somehow. Things are never the same, you know. Every time that you do a piece, you see it, depending on the place, depending on the time, depending on the participant. You know, you can gain, you can win lots of things. You know, there are new or things that can transform the piece. And somehow, the most of the piece that I do, every time that I go to a place, I change it a little bit. So but this one like it's very simple. The instructions are very simple. So it keeps it almost the same piece, of course with different participants. You can come to the exhibition, and depending on the participant in it, you can have different atmosphere, or let's say a different landscape. I have somehow a strict idea what they should do, but the conversation is very important. Actually, I never I don't used to rehearse, you know, in a strict sensu. I don't go there and then I try like a choreography. It's not this. Or I try to control a certain text if I am working with a text. But in this idea, I only have this discussion with them, and if in this particular piece, with each participant, because they have this special history in their bodies, I have to go with them and see how they feel comfortable, because always, this is very important in my piece, that the participant really feel comfortable and confident of doing it. So the rehearsal is much more a conversation, which is very important for me, this conversation.